As I'm aware, every single one of us has seen a small child playing tag or running around on the playground and fall and scrape their little knees. This small bruises, cuts, and even little scrapes are expected to be seen on all active children at some point. The difference is, how can you tell when these marks are not from the child's play activities, but from something beyond their control? How can you tell when it's child abuse? Discipline comes in many forms, but under no circumstances should it leave long-lasting negative impressions on the child forever. How do you recognize child abuse? We may ask ourselves, is it child abuse when a child comes in and suddenly acting out? Sudden changes in behavior is one of the #1 ways of telling when something's not right with the child. The child may be being abused if they become overly withdrawn and passive. Some may even cry at the thought of going home and may act out when it's time to go home if the abuser is in the household. A parent or caregiver who is the abuser will show very little concern for the child. They may blame the child for all their problems, home problems, school problems, any kind of problem they come across. They act like their child is worthless. They don't speak good of their child, and they don't have much to do with their child. The parent caregiver and the child both may show little to no affection or communication with one another. They may always be negative when they're around each other, and they may even openly state or show dislike for one another. Some physical signs of physical abuse on a child are unexplained marks on the body. They may have an excessive amount of marks on their body. Faded marks after a school child misses a few days of school could also be signs of abuse. They may seem scared or cower down when an adult approaches them, and some children are even brave enough to report when they are being injured. A parent or caregiver will have no explanations for the marks on their child's body. They may be negative about the child, and they may discipline harshly when the child tries to speak out. Some abusers also have a history of child abuse. Either they were abused or they have abused before. The consequences of a child being physically abused cause feelings of anxiousness and depression. It makes it hard for children to behave. A parent or caregiver who is abusing may have negative feelings and stress over oneself when they are finished abusing a child. They may be arrested, have many court appearances, and even have their children removed if they are found to be abusing their children. The 2010 National Abuse Statistics state that a report is made every 10 seconds of child abuse, and more than 5 children every single day will die from the abuse. 80% of those children who die are under the age of 4 years old. 50 to 60% of these deaths are not reported as abuse cases. 30% of abused children will continue the cycle and become abusers themselves. Today, in 2010, 80% of abused 21-year-olds have a psychological disorder. Criminal statistics are also much higher in abused children. 14% of all men who were in prison were abused as children. 36% of all women were also abused as children. 59% of abusers are more likely to be arrested as juveniles. 28% are more likely to be arrested as adults. 30% of abused children are more likely to commit violent crimes than non-abused children. As we have seen, abuse happens way more than it should. The effects of abuse are very long-lasting and life-changing for these children. Be aware of the proper signs and symptoms of abuse. Your knowledge could be a lifesaver. Speak up and out. People need to be aware of what is going on.